All right, what can you tell us about the story?
I can tell you that the story is great. It feels like a real movie. It's not pieced together from any particular comic book story, which I think sometimes constricts these films a little bit if they're trying to translate a comic book story. But we were able to tell a full movie, a linear story that originated with us, and I was really thrilled that was going to be the case, because that's the way I think a movie should be written. And consequently, it just feels like a good, strong movie to me. I mean, when I was watching it, I knew what was going to happen, and it still felt like a really good, strong movie to me. So there you go.
I was wondering, when you're co-writing with someone, how did you go about doing so? Like, did you kind of draft it out together and say, I'll work on this part and you work on that part, or did you kind of like collaborate with scene by scene?
Well, the beautiful thing is that I've known Jim and Ernie for a very long time. Jim Krieg and Ernie Altbacker, and we are good friends, and we write in a similar fashion. So when Jim came to me and said he wanted me to do this, and I said, he said he wanted me to do it with Ernie, I thought, well, this is going to be a party. This is going to be fun. So that was the first step. The second step was we got together. Actually, we all got together and went to a screening of Apocalypse Now, which is a movie that I know by heart because I actually went to a pre-release screening of it when it first came out. Stood in line for 4 hours, so it's a movie that I know really well. But that got us into the mood and the spirit of what we wanted to do with this film. So we all did that together. We all had a nice outing. Then Jim, Ernie, and I thrashed out the plot, which is, again, just three people who think alike, having a really good time figuring out what the story was going to be. And then after that, when we had the story locked in kind of a beat outline form, Ernie took the first half, and then I wrote the second half. And then we got notes. We joined it together, and we got notes, and then I did a pass from beginning to end. So I rewrote a lot of the first half, and I rewrote a lot of my second half. And then what happened after that, I don't know. I think Jim might have done a pass. I don't know if Ernie touched it again, but I think really after that it was Jim. It went very easily, very smoothly. My joke is that I'm still waiting for the bad notes. Maybe after the screening they might hand me the bad notes. No, we really, one of the easiest projects I've ever worked on.
You said a little earlier that you borrowed, you looked at different stories. Is
Yeah.
there one in particular that really inspired this?
Well, the first thing that Jim did was he handed me, the way that it went was, Jim said to me one day, we were having lunch, and he said, I want you to work on something. I said, great. About a year passed, and then he said, I want you to look over this Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. He handed me the softcover compilation. He didn't have to, because I actually had picked up the comics when they first came out. I'm an old guy, so I was there when the comic came out. I was there. I know what it felt like for there to be that implosion of wow, or explosion of wow, this is amazing, So that wow, this is amazing was what we knew we wanted to bring to this movie, this wonderful relationship between Green Lantern and Green Arrow, even though it's a different Green Lantern. So yeah, we took a little bit of that, and we took some other stuff that you'll see if you haven't already, but mostly it's a story about Jon Stewart. It introduces him to a generation that grew up with him on Justice League, has been waiting for him to end up in one of these big screen movies, and that was the mandate, was to tell his story and tell it really well. Because I think it's been long overdue to do this character. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I am the first black TV animation writer. I was first black staff writer when I was at Hanna-Barbera. First black showrunner. When I did Spider-Man, the animated series. Now here we are a million years later, and I'm celebrating exactly my 40th anniversary in the business, which makes me the longest running black writer in animation. And then they hand me this iconic character, this DC's first black superhero, and say, can you bring him to the big screen for a whole generation that's been waiting for him? It's his 50th year. It's his 50th anniversary. So it's just such a wonderful convergence of things for me personally that I'm thrilled and ecstatic to be able to do this with this character.
Did you feel any, the pressure, responsibility, dyad? Did you feel, how did you feel those things?
Always. I mean, when I handled Spider-Man way back when, it was like, this is the most important thing in the world. But that's the job. The job is, it's like an actor on stage on Broadway. If you can't handle that pressure, then you can't really do the job. My feeling is I come to life as a writer, as a showrunner, when they hand me the big project. When they say, this is the big deal, do it. I tell the anecdote of, I was at the DC offices one day and Jeff Johns was there and he kind of said, hey, John, come here. Called me into his office and he said, take a look at this. And he showed me the trailer for the Justice League movie before anybody in the world had seen it. And I thought to myself, this is where I want to be. I want to be in an office at DC with Jeff Johns watching a trailer that that's going to be the big surprise for Super Bowl or whenever it was that they rolled it out. So I like being on the front line creatively. And yeah, it's a huge amount of pressure. But if you can't handle it, you can't do the job.
What can you tell us about where is Jon Stewart in his career and his mindset when we see him in his movies? Because you mentioned Justice League, so everyone kind of knows him.
Yeah.
I mean, how different or?
Well, he has just come back from a conflict. He's suffering from PTSD. He's not a superhero yet. Doesn't want to be a superhero. And this story is about how the only way he can escape from the jungle in his head is to go back into the jungle, just like Martin Sheen at the beginning of Apocalypse Now. He's got to go back into the conflict. In our case, it's the Rand-Thanagar War. Not that he's returning to something, but he's returning to battle. And he's got to work out the issues in his head, and he's really got to rediscover why he fights, why he wants to do the right thing, why he is willing to take on the mantle of being a Green Lantern. Because in the beginning he doesn't want it. And, so that's a little bit the Joseph Campbell, hero of 1,000 faces. He really is chosen, he doesn't choose to be the hero, but he learns to accept it. And he also learns to accept himself, to understand, again, to become reconnected with his own motivations for why he wants to be who he is and do what he does. And I think that the story works on that level.
What do you see next for Jon?
What do I see next for him? Well, I think in the DC animated universe, they're going to use him again. If they, everything is 2 years in advance. So, 2 years ago, I'm sure that they have put him in other movies. I'm not privy to that information, so I don't know. But somebody told me along the line that he is now a part of at least one other movie, and I'm thrilled. But he got his own movie. That's great, the fact that they give him, and our movie actually runs a little bit longer than these films normally run.
They're usually under 80 minutes.
Yeah, we had so much good stuff. I was talking with Butch about that when we were eating lunch just a little while ago. Ours runs a little bit long because there was a lot of good stuff going on, and I like the way they tightened it up. I think they really made it better. So I'm pretty happy right now.
Do you think that this could be his stepping stone into live action?
Wouldn't that be nice? I think he is now going to be. Now I don't know for a fact because I'm not privy to that information, but I believe there's a Green Lantern TV show being developed right now, and I'd be really surprised if he wasn't a part of it. So,
So I'm curious about history of the characters. You had obviously mentioned you have a very long career in animation.
Yeah.
And I've always been fascinated by how do you bring characters like that with a long history into, for lack of a better word, the modern world, but still stay respectful to 20, 30, 40 years. It's got to be very tough.
It can be. I was lucky when I did Spider-Man. I had the character just before the digital era. So in a way, we could replicate a lot of what had gone on in the 60s. So, he didn't have to be carrying a cell phone and he didn't have to be working on computers that much. In this case, I don't really think, I think there was a lot of room because I don't really think that John's background had been fully explored. I really kind of felt like we weren't constrained by much of what had gone on in the comic book. Starting from the beginning in terms of him getting his powers. I don't know, I guess, we just didn't feel, I didn't personally feel like there was too much baggage that I had to pay attention to. We got him into outer space fairly quickly. And the bigger baggage for me was the whole Rand Thanagar thing, conflict, which I had to kind of really bone up on. Because I didn't really know a whole lot about that, to be honest with you. But no, John, I kind of felt like I had a handle on. And I didn't feel like he was so rooted in his time. What happened, honestly, with a lot of black characters is that back in the day, they did not get much depth. So if you're talking about Peter Parker, or if you're talking about Superman, there's just so much depth to play with. But as I recall, Jon Stewart was introduced in the comics and then disappeared for a really long time. And then when they brought him back, they really kind of brought him back more on a cosmic level, as I recall. And so he just didn't have a lot of deep history that I felt we were burdened by. You may know better than me, if you're more of a comic book geek, but no, I didn't really feel that he was terribly burdened by too much of a backstory.
How would you describe when you first saw, like, opening scene, when you watched the movie, like, seeing here's Jon Stewart in his own movie?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thrilled. I mean, the job that Butch did bringing this to life exceeded my expectations. And I'm so used to, I've been in TV animation for a very long time. You write your heart out, and then it gets animated overseas, and you got the Z team, you got the guys who can't animate. And you go, oh my God, that was going to be the greatest story ever, and it looks like crap. In this case, everything looked better than I expected. So I was thrilled. I'm going to be thrilled tonight. I deliberately have not watched it for a while. I've seen it,
Butch,
but I haven't seen it for a while. So,
Thank you.
yeah, it was nice meeting you guys.